Well, welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be today. It's really nice to continue to see such a strong turnout for these experience sharing learning sessions that we've been organizing under the umbrella of our response to COVID in ASM communities through DELV and in partnership with the World Bank Impact. This is the second of a three-part series where we are giving the opportunity to some organizations who have been working under the COVID and ASM emergency window facility that the bank set up in July of this past year to respond to COVID. So this is an opportunity for some of the first round partners to present their work in a bit more detail. But more importantly, I think to share some lessons, reflections on the ongoing difficulties that they are facing in implementing under the current circumstances, also some of the successes, and just an opportunity for us as a community of practitioners to exchange, encourage, and learn. I keep on saying this, so apologies for those that have heard this before, but for us who are living in the United States, we really in some ways forget, because we've come such a long way in terms of the vaccination programs. The rates are dropping rapidly in the US. We sometimes lose sight of the fact that this is not the case in a lot of parts of the world. Our hearts, and our best wishes go out to everyone, especially Christopher and everyone in India. And so it's important that, we continue to raise the profile of the issue of COVID and its impact it's having on our work and those that we are here to serve. And that's really the purpose of today's. So today's is really looking at partnership. And it's looking at how partnership can help to build resilience, economic resilience, but also social resilience. And I'm really pleased because we have a great lineup. We had a great lineup 2 weeks ago. We have a great one as well today. We're going to be looking at three examples, three different parts of the world: Afghanistan, Nigeria, and India. The case study on Afghanistan is about setting up a women in mining chapter or network in the country to support women, especially during this time when there isn't a lot of visibility on their work, and by consequence, some of the issues that they're facing currently, particularly in the gemstone sector. But we're going to hear from Sarah on broader issues. Then in Nigeria, Women's Right to Education program has been doing just a phenomenal piloting of responses to SGBV and other women's concerns in communities. And we're going to hear about this very innovative intervention. And then India with CBART, who has been really working, especially over the last 6 weeks or so, under extremely difficult conditions. Our heart again goes out to Christopher and all those we know have suffered and lost during this time in India, and really want to just raise up the profile of CBART for their determination, but also the way in which they've continued to program with a lot of thought towards prevention and safety, and putting those principles first in the work that they are doing. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Nate, who's going to facilitate the discussion. As usual, when you're not speaking, maybe just turn off your camera. It helps with the bandwidth. And chat function, always there. I think you guys are pretty good about putting in your questions. And of course, please follow up with any of us on the team. So Patricia, Charlie, who I'm not sure is here today, myself, Nate, and James, if you want to know anything more about any of these organizations or be in touch with them directly. So thank you again to everyone who's joined, and I wish you all a really good session.
Great, thanks Rachel so much. You hit on a couple of the points I was going to mention here. We are going to hear from our three different speakers. today, and they'll be just delivering some short presentations on the response efforts. And then after that, we're hoping to have ample time for discussion and Q&A. So do use that chat function to submit any questions you might have, and you can unmute yourself once we have that the discussion session after the presentations. Just a note too, we will be sharing the slides and recording from this presentation with the working group too. So if you want to share it or pass it along, feel free to do that as well. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker. We're going to have Miss Sarah Nouri, who is a partner at Hatam Nouri, a woman-owned legal and consulting service company that's working in the corporate sector in Afghanistan, and also the president of Smart Mining, a woman-led mining consultancy based in Afghanistan. Sarah has over 12 years of experience working in the public and private sector in the Netherlands, Afghanistan, Belgium, and Kyrgyzstan, and she started her career in 2010 with the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs before moving to Kabul 4 years ago, where she's been working with the Afghan government as a legal advisor for various companies. And with that, Sarah, I'll turn it over to you to share a little bit more about your response effort today.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Happy to be part of this conversation. So let me first of all give you a little bit of a background on the impact that COVID-19 had in Afghanistan and its implications for the extractive sector. So in the summer of 2020, Afghanistan went through a deadly but a silent pandemic wave and managed through it by nothing other than developing a herd immunity by ways of infection. So people battled the virus and either recovered in their homes or died there. So the official figures are a little over 60,000 registered cases and 2,600 officially recorded deaths. Of course, these figures have to be multiplied because many cases were not tallied. Nevertheless, the death toll remained one of the lowest in the region because of the relatively young population. So Afghanistan then quickly opened its borders while the COVID-19 cases spiked in the neighboring countries this year. So across the country, public places were packed with unmasked people. Universities and schools were open until 2 weeks ago. And the country is now at risk of developing its own variant. There's a shortage of oxygen, and oxygen production is hindered by electricity problems, which are caused by violence in face of the growing political instability and the impending withdrawal of the US troops. So to this end, the foreign minister called upon neighboring countries to provide oxygen. Of course, COVID-19 had devastating implications for a country like Afghanistan, which is landlocked and involved in a conflict. But the consequences were also immeasurable in the extractive sector. First of all, many tenders were cancelled. Many funds that were intended for the extractive sector were diverted towards the health sector. But most importantly, because markets were down and the borders were closed, there is a disturbance of trade in the mining commodities such as marble, talc, travertine, and precious stones such as, precious stones and jewelry exports were also disabled. And so traditional venues such as exhibitions and trade fairs were cancelled, hitting the most vulnerable people, which are women, and since women are the ones who are involved in the gemstone and jewelry value chains. For this project, our intent was to identify and bring women in the extractives together to form one voice and jointly find solutions to impediments that were caused by COVID-19. So Hatam Nouri LLC, a legal consultancy in collaboration with Smart Mining, a multidisciplinary mining consultancy, both based in Afghanistan, as the implementer of this project, of establishing a Women in Mining Association Afghanistan, is proud to have contributed to this project. We have, first of all, conducted an assessment identifying the women in the sector and the problems that they faced because of COVID-19. Then we registered the association. We conducted trainings in things like taxation, access to finance, and labor law, to enhance their capacity. And each session, of course, devoted enough time to sensitization on COVID-19 through Sharia law. I will come back on that a bit later. And our findings from several events and group discussions have concluded that e-commerce seems to be the most viable solution for hurdles caused by COVID-19. And we have also provided trainings in the use of that such platforms. Our achievements are that, so our key achievements are that we have brought together women who were isolated, and it's women from various disciplines. They are from the private sector, they're from the academia, but also women from the Ministry of Mines and Petroleum. And they were, first of all, very happy to be together, to see each other. They didn't know of each other's existence. First of all, this was very, we were happy to have facilitated that. And of course, to advocate for their rights and jointly find solutions for the impediments that were caused by COVID-19. Women in Mining Afghanistan is now linked with other similar organizations around the globe through Women in Mining International and International Women in Mining Alliance. And we are now speaking with Women in Mining Middle East, which is, of course, the region is very important for us, for the regional context. And I believe that, I think we are shaping a very interesting program with Women in Mining Middle East. We've conducted trainings to save some of the businesses because people were, women are, how should I say? They are crafts. They do possess the craftsmanship, but they are not so much skilled in the corporate side of things. So, for example, they did not know that because of COVID-19, the government had issued new rules that some businesses can be pardoned from paying taxes. So we made them aware of that and encouraged them to just file the taxes and do whatever is needed and be as transparent towards the government as possible. We introduced them to other venues of doing business, such as e-commerce, to surpass future shocks of COVID-19, because we feel that COVID-19 is likely to stay for quite some time in Afghanistan. And in that regard, we are right now looking into partnerships. As a matter of fact, I got off a phone earlier from Italy, Milan. So we're looking to partnerships with renowned jewelry designers and creative directors, where they can perhaps, attach their name to the products that will be produced by the Women in Mining Association, and then market them through an e-commerce platform. We are also speaking to several universities, particularly in Kazakhstan, to organize scholarships for the women that are member of the association. These things, the scholarship programs already existed for individuals. For example, the EU is doing this, but I think it will be much more effective, we believe so, if it's done through the association. On the challenges side, so first of all, we had great difficulty in finding all the women, identifying them. There were gatekeepers preventing them from us, preventing us to find them, basically. And so we needed to, through our personal network, we managed to succeed in identifying as many women as possible. The registration process was rather tough because of the partial COVID-19 lockdowns and the Ramadan. Things were very, very slow. So we took a huge risk of going personally to the government entities and making sure that things were happening. then, of course, the challenge was, in every event that we had, when women would come together, they would hoard together and start, kissing each other. And, Afghans are very social people. So the kissing session would continue, like, in a series of 8 kisses and so. So, and then they would say that, it's if something happens, then that's God's decision. So we had to remind them that as part of Islamic law, they needed to observe the rules of cleanliness and hygiene. That there are general rules, and specifically regarding pandemics, there are instances in Islamic history where there were pandemics during the life of Prophet Muhammad. He then issued directions such as quarantine. For those who did not abide by these laws were then condemned, and a person infecting other person in causing a person's death, in the Islamic law, that is being guilty of murder. So these things are usually used as guidelines to make sure that people don't spread the virus. And we have to always remind them. So this is they always listen when you tell them a story about the Islamic history, and that this is how the Prophet Muhammad did things. Then we managed to keep them apart and keep distance and make sure that the virus does not spread. Right now we have plans to, first of all, improve the production through acquiring trainings by industry experts, as I mentioned before, famous jewelry designers, and then selling the products through this e-commerce platform, where those who are selling the products through the platform will be able to donate a certain percentage of their proceeds to the association, thereby maintaining the association alive. That is it on my side. If you have any questions, please raise them. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Sarah, and certainly do share those questions that you might have in the chat. We'll hold questions for now till we have the discussion portion after we've heard from all 3 of our speakers. And so, with that, I'm going to queue up our next speaker, Ms. Mimidou Achakpa, who is the Executive Director of the Women's Right to Education Program, a Nigerian NGO that aims to empower communities, especially women and organizations, in self-determination and minimizing the impacts of environmental and other health emergencies like HIV/AIDS and now COVID-19. And so, Mimidou, if you're there, I'm going to ask you to if you can unmute yourself, we'll have you share your presentation here with the group.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. For us here in Nigeria, the context, the pandemic changed the lives and realities of people. A lot of people, especially women and children, trade, and there was destruction of trade, production of minor minerals. It also impacted employment and well-being of local communities, especially women. ASM lost livelihoods, and this increased vulnerability to different forms of sexual and gender-based violence. Our project was carried out in Benue and Nasarawa states. Mining activities halted at the peak of the lockdown. Statistics also shows that over 100 cases and 2,000 deaths were recorded in each of the project locations. Next slide. So for us, and as an organization, REP is an NGO with a special consultative status of the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations, and we've been in existence for over 17 years, and we have worked across Nigeria for all these years. Strategies are driven by the relationships and experiences we have developed with partners and communities over the years. To be specific to this project, We partnered with 3 ASM communities, each in the 2 states, and we conducted community engagements, service mapping of GBV referral pathways, capacity building on 24 young people on a Constancy app that is used for tracking GBV cases. We also trained 90 women on menstrual hygiene and livelihood skills. Specifically, we trained them on soap and production and hand sanitizers. And these activities resulted in the maintenance of the project and communities through structural partnership, thereby building their resilience during the pandemic. Here is a picture of the women learning how to produce the hand soap with the facilitator with them. Next slide. Yeah, some of the key achievements we recorded, we created a lot of awareness on COVID-19 and gender-based violence. In terms of economic empowerment, the women learned skills through the livelihood trainings that were done for them. And they also learned how to improve on their menstrual hygiene and income generation through the production of reusable sanitary pads. And also the use of easy tracking of gender-based violence through the use of the Constancy app. And also we had tried to identify service centers to be used in the gender-based violence service referral pathways. Specifically, in the mining communities, this impacted positively through raising other forms of income generation ideas. Major impact of the pandemic was the reduction in mining and poor demand for their products, affected their income. ASM women engaged, were excited and had more confidence in carrying out their daily activities while adhering to COVID-19 protocols of staying at home. These achievements played a strong role in strengthening the selected women in the ASM community socially and economically through the pandemic. The challenges we recorded is in one of the states, especially Nasarawa State, where right from the first advocacy visit we made to the ASM director at the national office here, he mentioned that the area we had to Alizaga, no, not Alizaga, one of the other communities was not safe for us to go. So we confirmed that when we met with the ASM officer at the state level. And so we had to swap some locations for relatively safe ASM communities in Nasarawa State. We also got insider information on the best hours to travel, and the team, we took advantage of those hours. That is from 10 in the morning to 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. One of the innovative approaches we used was using a male facilitator for the session on menstrual hygiene. The women have requested that they be trained again because one day training was not enough for them. And then the other innovative approach we used was the use of the Constancy app and its inherent benefit to the victims. Witnesses trained vanguards. That's the trained vanguards are the 24 youths that we trained on the use and reportage of the GBV cases. Also the private sector, duty bearers and other stakeholders. The identified challenges did not hamper our work of planning, building the resilience of women in the ASM communities as a result of the pandemic. In terms of sustainability, we identified and worked with existing women miners at the local communities where we worked. And we already linked and registered with the state ministries of mines and steel. That is the 2 states where we carried out our interventions. For now, arrangements were also made for the provision of data for the trained youth on the Constancy app for a period of 2 months. That is post the EGPS funding. Also, the inherent ability to boost local vigilance against GBV as trainees will be our pilot vanguards. We also engaged at the federal level, the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development in the design of the project and its implementation. We did not only engage the ministry, we also engaged the Mean Diver project, which is a World Bank funded project. We met with the Amanda, who is, I think, one of the advisors there, and then we made the social safeguard consultant. Recently, they also invited us to the validation workshop of a job they gave out to a consultant, and we also participated at that validation workshop and made our input. And the beneficiaries were also part of the monitoring of the project to ensure they understand how they can ensure sustainability of the project even after the EGPS funding. Next slide, if any. In terms of key learnings and reflections and recommendations, we learned that advocacy is key. Anyway, from the series of works we have carried out over the past 17 years, we've always learned that advocacy is key to the success of any project. So we felt that paid advocacy visits to the relevant stakeholders and the advocacy, especially to the artisanal and small scale mining director, played a key role in enlightening us on the dangers of kidnapping and banditry that would have been experienced in Sauneng, Sarki, or Jobe in Azara due to the increase in the increase of kidnappings in the 2 locations. And education, most of the women in Alizaga community are not educated. They did not want the same fate for their children. They therefore contributed money amongst themselves to build 1 block of 2 classroom school and employ teachers to help give their children the needed education so they can become prominent in life. In terms of recommendation, we say that women who started and sustained alternate livelihood initiatives should be considered for direct funding from the EGPS. And EGPS should also consider the communities when there is an education project so they can also benefit from the project. Next slide. And the Nigerian Mining Act should be reviewed to incorporate gender concerns, including child miners. The Child Rights Act 2007 requires legislation dealing with child labor in hazardous activities. This should also, we think this should also be reviewed and incorporated. I remember I did a technical study for the then SMMRP project on child labor in artisanal small-scale mining communities. I went around 18 states of Nigeria, and some of these recommendations were also reflected in the recommendations as part of that report. And then we say withdrawal from mining work by women should be accompanied by a whole range of supportive measures, such as the EGPS support. Especially important if the women and their children have been stunted in their development for a greater period. In addition to education, training, health services and nutrition, vocational training, and recreational activities and intensive counseling are also needed. These women also need all of this. Is that? So here is a picture of some of the women we trained on alternative livelihood. I think there's another picture again. Yeah, this is a picture of the youth that we are trained on the Constancy app. So I think I'll stop for now. Thank you so much.
Excellent
And I'll
presentation,
take
Mamadou. Thank you.
questions after.
Super, and please do share your questions. I know there's some interesting pieces there on the alternative livelihoods training, and then also the Constancy app. Maybe some folks want to hear more about that, but we'll hand over to our final presenter for today, Mr. Christopher Samuel. Christopher is the communication manager for the Center for Indian Bamboo Resource and Technology, or CBART, which is based in New Delhi, India. Christopher brings over 40 years of experience in communications and research in the public and private sector. And for the past 5 years, he's worked to develop and evaluate and validate different research studies for SABART, including market and consumer perception studies. Christopher, I'll turn it over to you to share a little more about this innovative partnership and the work being done by SABART. Oh, I don't know if we can hear you, Christopher. Are you unmuted?
Christopher, are you there?
Oh, I know we had heard from him earlier. Christopher, maybe we can try muting or unmuting your microphone. We just can't hear you.
Christopher?
Let's see, I think he might be troubleshooting, trying to log back in. So we can give him a moment to do that. Christopher, I see you back in the chat.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, Christopher. I think we can hear you now.
Can I start now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so good evening, good afternoon. Now, I'm from the Center of Bamboo, Indian Bamboo Sibat, and I will give you some background on this. Now, the first time, can we go to the next slide? Can we go to the next slide?
Yeah, sorry, there might be a delay.
At India, there were 10 million infections and 150,000 deaths over 10 months. Now, in the project district, there were only 4,000 infections and 47 deaths. So people did not consider COVID as a pandemic, and they did not wear masks, and they did not practice social distancing. And then the second wave came, and while 13,000 cases and 117 deaths are reported, the numbers are supposed to be much more because these are remote areas and nobody knows what's happening very far away. Okay. Now there was now the infrastructure was available in the first instance because people had been COVID, had come all over. In the second time, the rapid rate of infection not allow for infrastructure to handle both infections. And first time there was cash support, food support. This time all the people, including the mine workers who were on daily wages, lost their jobs. We go to the next one. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, Sibat rely in providing technology, experts, and institutional linkages to local NGOs working with communities using bamboo, working with communities in local government, institutions, and the village people. It had 20 years of it had worked for 20 years with national and international agencies in this district. Now, community radio was planned to was it just happened, and we had the training in the community radio premises because we believed that we could later on have community radio programs with the beneficiaries. Village volunteers are a group of people who work in various projects, whatever is of topical interest on the ground. Can we go to the next one? The next slide. Yes, now the bamboo a home production system is both suitable for women, and bamboo is a good natural resource. Now, there were issues of identifying women who could produce quality products in quantity in terms of their uh, attitude towards training, their aptitude, etc. The community radio station was used for the training, and certain videos were taken so that they could be used for radio program, because radio programs, community radio works because it's peer-to-peer communication. You know, people are interested in what the next village is doing. Okay. Okay. Now, one of the issues which would arise was marketing. Now, we could form SHGs. We have formed three, out of which two will be good, but they lack logistics knowledge. And they need hand-holding. So, village volunteers will provide this support for 3 months. They will take them to markets, will have a supply of raw materials, and they will try and institutionalize a system for both production and marketing. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. No, the previous slide. Okay. Now, the radio talk show was extremely effective because there were people working on the ground. There was this the village village level health workers. Now, they were providing data on what the issues were, and each talk show included those issues if they were relevant. At the same time, it helped clear, misconceptions on the ground, because people tended to believe community radio more than some external person. Of course, the village volunteers were not, the field volunteers were not external. The ASHA workers were not external, but still it helped. Next, please. Next slide. Yes. Now, as I said earlier, the work from home system does not have a issue except in logistics, in terms of input of raw material and markets. Now, there are local markets for bamboo. There are trade fairs. The SHGs will be helped to participate in those trade fairs. Our partners, Sai Jyoti, are going to be around for a long time, and they will help them because they work for the people in that area. Okay, as far as marketing, internet marketing and national level exhibition, we will do that from Delhi because we are anyway doing it for so many people. We'll add this to our product line. Okay, the radio talk show was interesting because if we create awareness, then the period of lockdown can be reduced because awareness leads to prevention, prevention leads to less infection, and there are various other benefits. It's all written there. Next, please. Next slide. Okay, as far as sustainable strategies, I have already covered that. We are going to have 3 self-help groups, out of which 2 will work most efficiently. Actually, we are planning more SHGs and it can be done. Then they will be trained and all, they will manage production, it's all written there. Now, as far as knowledge products are concerned, we have done a baseline survey report. We are doing, since the sector is new and since Shibat is particularly interested in mining, because bamboo has restored degraded mining lands about 600 kilometers away. Bamboo is contributing to land degradation neutrality in Ghana, in other places in Africa. Okay, we have got a compilation of press reports on livelihoods for ASM workers and community radio. This will be distributed to various people at the local level and at the state level. It will not help at the national level. We have the price tags are particularly will be effective because one part shows a picture of bamboo producer. The other side talks about the ASM community and how vulnerable they are. Okay, now the recorded talk shows which will be provided, they can be used for any pandemic. They can be, the content has to be changed. It consists of small little components, each changes, and it is useful. It could be useful. Next slide. Okay, now, one of the most important, see, we have these videos, I have explained it earlier. Okay, now, an ASM report, an ASM sector report, I personally believe is very important for India because while ASM contributes 90% to it consists of 90% of mines, small mines, of course, and it doesn't exist. People don't know it's there. Now, the Tata Iron and Steel Company, the oldest iron and steel company, and the Tatas are a globally well-known organization. They have for a long time recognized the ASM sector and have been conducting programs for development of women. Now, the other mining companies, for example, the third largest mining energy generation company in India is in Lalitpur. But the guys out there don't know that there's an ASM sector. I don't think they can, maybe at the very high senior levels they would, but they just don't know. So this kind of report would help. Now, for this kind of report, we require to develop good data. Now, the good data can only be okay. Now, good data can be collected, and we also have to develop partnership with ASM communities, large scale mining companies. We also have to develop partnership with the small mining companies because the government says they have to plant trees, but they don't know what trees to plant, where to plant it, etc. So they just haphazardly plant whatever is the easiest, and they could be co-opted to plant natural plant, trees or grasses like bamboo, which have implications for ASM livelihoods, because the miners, when they are not mining, often go to the forest and collect medicinal plants or leaves which they make plates out of, and that kind of thing. So that is all for now. I hope it was informative. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Christopher, for that presentation. And yeah, I think there's a lot of broad-reaching topics there that you covered, which are really interesting and ideas to consider around, especially alternative livelihoods. It's something that both you and Mimi kind of touched on. Maybe we can discuss here in this open discussion. I know we've had a couple questions in the chat and a little bit of time to discuss. So if folks do have any other questions, feel free to unmute yourself to ask those. But I can, invite Sarah and Mimidou back to just join Christopher and I. We can have some of this discussion. One of the first questions I saw in the chat from James was around directed towards you, Sarah, on the Women in Mining Association in Afghanistan, and wondering if you could share a little bit more about any kind of numbers we might have around women working in the sector and the type of roles they're performing, and are they in the trading, producing, and what kind of work could be done to collect more data? Where might you see kind of value added there?
Yes, thank you. So we did a survey, and we understood that there are over 1,400 women active in the gem and jewelry sector, value chains, basically. So that is, they do cutting, polishing, and jewelry making, but they're also trading at the same time. There are over 200 women working with the government, so the Ministry of Mines and Petroleum. But it's a Ministry of Mines and Petroleum is located in Kabul, but they have also extended services in the provinces. So that's where also women are working, just few, not many. But that's mostly concentrated in Kabul. And there are a few women in the academia. They're teaching at universities, the Kabul University and the Polytechnic University. That's where they teach geology, hydrology, anything that has to do with mining. And yes, of course, we have designed a membership form. In this way, of course, we are hoping to collect more data.
Fantastic.
Is this helpful, hopefully?
Super. Yeah, that's really interesting. And we're actually, with Delve, we're putting together a country profile on Afghanistan, and I'm sure there's some information we can collaborate on. I'll follow up more with you on this. But that's something we're hoping to release this month as well in partnership with the USGS. Certainly a sector that has a lot of potential and I think opportunities for growth.
Absolutely.
Maybe to shift, maybe I see a comment here from Evans from the Tanzania Foundation for ASM Development around alternative livelihoods. And I think it's an interesting theme that came through this presentation. It's presentations from Mimidou and Christopher too, and looking at how the pandemic has kind of encouraged some of these alternative livelihood opportunities and trainings just to be offered to men and women in ASM communities that may have had their livelihoods impacted by the pandemic, and what other opportunities are there for diversification and trainings. And so maybe invite any more reflections. Kind of, I know, Christopher, you shared some more on that of what are some of the barriers or key factors to success you see around logistics or production being kind of essential kind of components that organizations can add value to help these entrepreneurs and alternative livelihoods flourish. I don't know, Mimidou or Christopher, are there any reflections that you might want to share with the group too on this idea of alternative livelihoods, and what are maybe some of the key factors for success that you see or needs that can encourage organizations looking to implement more of these alternative livelihood programs and trainings? And I invite, Evans or others from our audience too to share experiences around this topic too.
Hello, good afternoon from Nigeria.
Hi, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. My name is Omojo. I'm the programs manager, Women in Mining in Nigeria. I see a very golden opportunity in the sector in my country. The issues are cross-cutting across board. Effects of COVID-19 on ASM, especially the women, was very high. Was very high in Nigeria. It actually exposed the fact that they lack markets. The markets for them to trade their commodities, their product became very limited. It also exposed the fact that their
See, if these
knowledge
guys
about
want me to talk, I
digital
cannot hear them
marketing.
here. They want me to.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I think we can hear. I think Christopher's having some
It
issues.
also it also exposed the fact that their knowledge about e-commerce is very limited. Most of, like in Nigeria, over 90% of mining is done at the artisanal level, and most times they do it face-to-face contact. But COVID-19 came, and then face-to-face contact became very limited. It also exposed the fact that the socio-economic life of the women in mines is threatened. It was seriously threatened by COVID-19. So the Ministry of Mines and Steel has come up with a strategy to have clusters around geopolitical zones in the country. And good at it is the ministry made women in mining Nigeria the coordinator and the facilitators of these clusters. What's the function of the cluster? The cluster is meant to be an interlink between the miners and the market. So basically what Women in Mining Nigeria will be doing is to mobilize women, mobilize other artisanal miners, build their capacity, link them with national and international markets. We have to do a lot of capacity building because most of them don't know even what they are selling. They don't know the market value. So a lot of capacity building we'll be doing going forward. A lot of mobilization and sensitization will be doing. So peradventure, we have another pandemic or a total lockdown, your trading can still go on online. Okay, COVID-19 has actually exposed that. And then we're looking at also the fact that in Nigeria we have limited data, or rather no data at all. So we'll be embarking on a lot of research, and seeing how we can churn out these figures out there so that it will lead us, giving us a good baseline so that when our intervention starts, it will also help us.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that experience, Major, and I think it's an interesting example too of how your organizations are working to build resilience in light of the impacts of the pandemic.
Special purpose vehicles like clusters, which I've mentioned, like also mineral commodity trading platforms. So we need to establish all those platforms and see how these women can start engaging those platforms. So it will be very good for us. So the fact that the ministry has made Women in Mine Nigeria a coordinator and a facilitator for us is very key. But we're limited by funds, limited by capacity at the moment. So a lot of capacity strengthening, a lot of cross-cutting ideas from what has worked in your place and what we need to learn going forward to bring it to Nigeria. I think it will play a lot of role for us. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think there's opportunities within this group for collaboration with others and to learn on the experience. I see Evans has had his hand up here. I know he had shared some experience with alternative livelihoods. Maybe we can call on you, Evans, to share. And we ask you just to keep it a little bit brief.
So much.
Only about 3 or 4 minutes left here of time.
So very quickly, my name is Evans Lubara. I work with Foundation for ASM Development. To cut to the chase, we do work with women in mining in ASM, and we work with women who are in groups. During, as I shared, we had to do a quick assessment, and what we realized in the Tanzanian landscape is that women in ASM, as well as the others taking, operating in that sector, were actually left behind. No one really thought about them. And in Tanzania, even in just giving public awareness, it had to be done through or by people at the Ministry of Health. And so we managed to do that, as well as managed to actually take for them some sanitation equipment, as well as protection gear in terms of masks. But what we did with the women particularly was that we did a quick assessment, and they chose to actually be trained on the production of soap, liquid soap, which is still very much in demand right now, as well as bar soap and sanitizers. We didn't really get into making the sanitizers because I believe that in their environment, the bar soaps and liquid soaps were very useful. I would just like to say that, as I said already, I would just like to highlight the fact that a lot of times women, I don't know what women are being paid in other areas, but I think that the presentation from Nigeria was quite interesting on how they've dealt, worked alongside women in ASM. But for us here, really, the women working in the ASM sector are not all that empowered. And it would be really great for us to learn what other strategies you've used. Even though women in ASM here have been there for as long as ASM activities have been in the country, but they are not really recognized, and therefore they're always left behind. And the impact on them during this time since 2020 has not really been great, but we have seen some changes, and we are seeing some awareness being raised. So for us as a young organization, which only started in 2019, we really look forward to engage more with partners, stakeholders represented here to share experiences, ours, and obviously tap from your immense experiences. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Evans. And I do think that's definitely a clear theme from these conversations we've been having in this series, and as well, and the opportunity to continue to shine the light on women involved in the sector, and promote their involvement, and ways for achieving kind of further equality and empowerment through different programs and alternative livelihoods, all as opportunities there. I know we're almost at time here, so I see, Janet, you've raised your hand. If you have a final word for us to share, and then we'll have to wrap up shortly here. But I want to, if you have a short comment to add, please do. Oh, Janet, can you hear me? Would you like to offer a...
Janet, your microphone is muted.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Janet. Hi.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
We can hear you. Yep. We're close to the hour, so if you have a, welcome you to share a short comment.
I want to congratulate everyone who worked on the project, but I just want to advise that subsequent projects you do, it's always good you network with women in mining associations across Africa directly. You know why? Because when you do that, whatever you are doing will be able to fit into the general blueprint, you understand, of moving women upward in Africa. Time will not permit me to start breaking into what I mean. But what I'm saying is that the areas of intervention, because the purpose of mining or the purpose of anything is to create wealth. And so when you have a wealth profile, a wealth plan that you are developing, it becomes easier when you integrate the stakeholders. It's embarrassing at times when you find projects being done in a sector where you're actively involved and you never even had a picture that such projects are going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet, for that comment. And I think today's presentation, we saw organizations working in partnership with a variety of stakeholders in the sector. And I think we can continue to achieve greater integration, through the connection that's offered by digital platforms like this working group and Delve, and other spaces through associations. And so I think we look forward to continuing to do that in these response efforts going forward and the work of Delve. And so, yeah, very much appreciative of everyone's kind of participation today and joining us for this conversation. We really are glad to hear the interest in this topic and continuing to kind of feature these response activities. And so we are at time now, so I'm gonna just have to wrap us up. This is the second of our third in a series of presentations on the World Bank's EGPS response funded activities in ASM communities. We are going to have our next meeting in 2 weeks. It'll be on the 22nd of June, and we'll be sending out a follow-up email about that, but it'll be at I think an hour later time slot for everyone. So we hope that you'll join us. It's going to be a session on innovation and ways that other networks and organizations in Brazil, across Africa, are working to respond to the pandemic's impact. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we certainly appreciate your partnership in this effort, and thank you to each of our speakers for their time and for sharing the great work that they're doing. All right.
Thank you for such wonderful facilitation. And thank you to Patricia as well. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Nathan. See you in 2 weeks.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.